Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting their roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am so pleased that you're here tonight because, this is our second show of the year. I'm very, very excited for what we have coming up. I'm mainly excited for what we have coming up for you tonight because this is going to be something that rocks totally. The premise of Elly Molina's writing is that we have innate abilities, which I agree with. And she has written a book, The Children Who Know How to Know, about teaching, not just your children, but yourselves, how to develop their skills as far as psi skills. She has got a business, Psi-Kids Academy, and her book, Children Who Know How to Know, is the one that covers this information. She's also written Annabelle and the Domino and a compilation with Betsy. I'm not sure we're going to get her to tell me how to pronounce this name. With her, Betsy. What the bleep? Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I am so pleased that you are here, Elly, because I have really been enjoying your books, and I'm really impressed that you're having the results that you're having, and that people are totally on board with you doing it. I live in Alabama. I don't think you would have gotten that reaction here. I may be wrong.
So thank you, Kat. So lots of things to start with. So thank you, Kat. Thank you for having me here tonight. And I'm honored to be here, and I'm so happy to be talking about this work. And to answer your question, I wish I could say, yes, everybody's so open to this. Unfortunately, we're still not there. There are just pockets of places and people who are open to this work. And I would say probably most of our country is still not open, not accepting, not even believing of this work. And that saddens me in so many ways, because we all have had that experience of thinking about somebody and then they call us and it was like, oh, I was just thinking about you. And for people then to look at that as if that is odd and bizarre, when it's a common experience that every human on the planet shares. So at this day and age, when there's so much knowledge about quantum physics and quantum mechanics and the way the universe works, or the way the universe thinks, we think the universe works, it saddens me to realize or to know that there are still so many people who believe that these things are not possible, that they're scary, that they're frightening, and that they're not normal. So I wish that more people believed in this, and that's my mission, to really get people to say, look, we're all psychic, especially our children we're all born with this. So why take it out of a young child? Why remove it and have them go through years later on of going into therapy and not trusting their intuition because they knew it all along?
Right.
So,
Well, I really find it interesting, because I think that would be widely accepted in the community who is creating all the buzz about quantum, right? Yeah. And I'm finding, because I research and study noetic sciences, I am finding that it is still being treated with a very woo attitude, which I don't understand, because there's so much documentation of the experiences.
Right.
So, that just strikes me as quite odd. But with the results that you have gotten for all this time, I'm just surprised that you did get pushback, because your results were inarguable.
Oh yeah, the results speak for themselves. That's there. So I call it my home. I found my home in the remote viewing community, because anyone who's familiar with remote viewing knows that anybody can do this. And remote viewing is seeing over time, distance, and space without the use of our physical eyes. So I did find a home. I have a very supportive tribe, I call them, of remote viewers. I don't have to convince any remote viewers that kids can do this and that this is what's next, and that this is part of raising conscious awareness, and that we all have this ability, because all remote viewers are trained. And these are people that are ordinary people. They're not gifted. They're not superb psychics or any of this, they're not paranormal, and they can all remote view. Anybody can remote view with training. And so this community, the remote viewing community, was especially open to embracing my work and helping to move it forward. I've spoken 3 times now at the International Remote Viewers Conference since 2015, and it's just been such a wonderful community to help spread the word. So that's the beginning. It's a beginning, Kat. It's a beginning. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a very strong beginning, because I'm going to tell you, I know that it can be taught, because I know several people who do it, and I wish that I could, well, probably soon I'm going to have the time, to do classes and such, I do have abilities, and I know it. They've protected me a lot because even when I didn't know I was counting on them, I was counting on them.
Right.
And they got me through adolescence without, becoming a statistic, and they got me through a lot. But, as you said, everyone has them. They just don't know how to access them. And it's really, you say it's not that hard.
Right. And the thing, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, Kat. One of the things that I've noticed is that we're all intuitive, right? And then we have this intuition, and then we learn not to trust it. And
yes.
One of the ways that we learn not to trust it is through the educational system and our own parents and adults. And it's not that they want bad for us, but they think that I'm thinking us now, children, okay? So they lie to us to protect us, but what they're doing is invalidating our intuition. And so then that starts to throw this doubt into little children's beings when they're being lied to. They know intuitively that they're being lied to, only again, it's the authority figure. And so what are they going to do? You're lying to me? Not going to work like that. So again, the intuition is invalidated, and then time over time, intuition then becomes stronger and stronger. And as these children grow into being adults, they have choices to say, okay, I'm going to continue now to learn how to trust my gut, so to speak, or I'm going to run around and be confused and have to defer to, quote unquote, the experts all the time and get help. So because all the answers are within us. We all have that access to universal consciousness and knowing everything we do. We have the answers are within us. So, yeah.
Well, we do. And I'm going to agree with you on that, because when I stop for a minute, if something is disturbing me, or if I'm feeling that there's a need for protection, whatever, then I do. I stop and kind of evaluate where that's coming from, and I just put up protection.
Right.
I'm a paranormal investigator. I study ufology. I'm really involved in educating myself about noetics. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing that you can just actually, that anyone, I feel, can just actually stop and do that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We
mm-hmm.
always, don't you feel that when danger is present, people know that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, again, one of my favorite quotes is that, I don't have the quote exactly now, but sailors have this innate ability to know, when there's going to be trouble at sea. Just like nurses knew, right? They know when the patient's about to die. And it's not just from experience, years and years of experience. There are signs, and they're intuitively connected. We know when someone's following us. We can feel the energy. We feel the presence. We may not be able to see behind our heads, but we know that there's something. And we also know we're so perceptive on an unconscious level, that on the subconscious level, let's put it like that, even though your eyes cannot perceive what's going on and your brain may not be able to process it cognitively for you at that moment, your consciousness is working, and those cues are coming into you, and so you're picking them up, and your body's perceiving them. It's whether they're from the sight and your smell and sense and touch. It's all right there let's call it in an aura, in an auric field, and it's available for us to pick up on all of those signals. And why is it that we can sometimes have the hair on the back of our necks go up when we're in a room, and we may not be able to perceive anything, but yet we sense that there's something there, but we can't see it with our eyes, but we can sense it.
Yes.
But that's getting off a little bit into the paranormal, but the kids that I work with, for example, Kat, they're all regular kids that go to school,
I love that.
they're not gifted. Their parents are open to this kind of work. Their parents are often in the field of remote viewing, or they're even in the field of people who just believe in the law of attraction and manifesting. And so they're open to this work. And so the way that I usually introduce it to the children is to really start to learn to take control over their bodies. I call it tucking away the body. I start with kids as early as 3 years old. And the reason that I start is in training a child to tuck away the body and to control the body, control the itching, control the scratching, controlling the urge to move. So basically self-control. By teaching self-control, that then leads to other levels of emotional intelligence and higher levels of consciousness. And it just opens up a world of awareness and ability. People who lack self-control have more difficult times in classrooms later on, and they have difficult times in society per se. Studies have been done to show even that children who then grow up to be, adults who display high lack of self-control affect the population. They burden the population. They're sicker. They have a tendency to be unhealthier. They have a tendency to go into criminality. So that is all due to lack of self-control. And self-control is not something that you're born with. It's something that we learn. We learn how to self-control. We learn how to do, to sit still, to sit quiet. And nowadays, at least when I was teaching back in the day, the answer to that was, they have ADHD, they have attention deficit. Let's medicate them so they can sit still. Well, that's not the way to do it. Let's get teachers and educators on board and teach focus. Let's get people educators and teachers and parents on board and teach how to concentrate and focus and how to use our awareness and direct our awareness to the areas that it's supposed to go. Now, one of the big things that's happened, of course, is that we are and I say that as adults, we are so distracted right now. So, of course, the kids are going to be distracted. We've got social media, we've got all of our gadgets, our electronics. I mean, studies have been done. I think we have an attention span of maybe a few seconds or something like that before we get distracted, and allow our awareness, it's not our mind, allow our awareness to get hijacked by something else or someone else. You go to, great example, you go to research something on your own laptop, and maybe an email pops up, or if you don't have an ad blocker, an ad pops up, and guess what? You're sitting there and you say to yourself, why am I here? Why did I come here?
Exactly.
You've gone down some other rabbit hole, and before you know it, you're sitting at your computer, and then you're on Facebook or Instagram, or and time has gone by, and you have just been totally distracted and taken out of your own game. And so this is happening to the children all the time, and the adults are not even in the space to be able to teach them how to focus and put their awareness on one particular thing at a time, because they can't do it.
Well, I see that happen all the time, sitting right here at my desk.
Yeah.
So it's really very frustrating, because I will sit down with pen in hand doing a project, looking for links to research, print off, go back to, although I have discovered Evernote, and if you don't have an organizational package like that, get one, because I am ADD, and it does help me. Although not so much as I'm getting older. I think mainly I just have CRS at this point. But it's one of those things that I have to have a tool to help me do this.
Right.
To fight all of the distractions. So
yeah.
Excuse me.
No, I'm fine. I'm just thinking, so I'm turning it back now to where I go with this then in terms of working with the kids, is that first I teach them to control their bodies. And then from the space of controlling their bodies, then we can begin to do the exercises on focusing perhaps focusing on a candle for a little bit. Again, taking our awareness and putting it on a candle. Look, if you can't use a real candle, you can use a fake candle. But the point is that you take your focus and you put it somewhere. And the children who in my program who've gone through this work and done years of this, from small on up, they're able to focus so well and really maintain that level so that when they're doing their focus work, they can use their intuitive senses, they can use their right brain to go, I'm going to call it to go into the consciousness, to go internal and see over time, distance, and space. So,
well, I'm going to have to interrupt you because amazingly enough, we're at our first break. I never know how that quite happens, but I am enjoying you very much. We will be back. If you have any questions, please do put them in chat, and we'll be right back after this.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
We are confident that none of our hosts are possessed. Being repossessed a few times? That might be a different story. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I am so glad you're here enjoying Elly Molina. And since I interrupted you, Elly, I'm going to just give it right back to you.
Oh, thanks, Kat. I'm going to actually take it to a different story so that people listening can understand perhaps a little bit more of what I'm doing. So I was during the height of our COVID time when we were all in lockdown, I created an online psychic development program via Zoom, and I had a number of adult participants on the program, and we were, quote, I call it remote, we were remote viewing. So we had an envelope on my screen. I had put an envelope on my Zoom screen, a manila envelope, and inside the envelope was supposed to be an image. Obviously, there is no image in the envelope because we're on a Zoom call and it's on a computer. So I had an image on the computer that no one could see. So they were closing their eyes and everybody went into a nice deep alpha state. That's where the brain waves are lower, the frequency is lower, which adults need alpha to meditate and to access the right brain hemisphere for intuition and creative abilities. And so the adult participants were pretty much in alpha. And one of the participants had her 5-year-old son walk by, and he looked at her and he said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, we're looking at this envelope. What's inside?" And he said to her, "Oh, that's easy. It's a man with a sword, and he's got dragons, and he has power." And then she said, "Well, why don't you draw that?" So he sat down with his 5-year-old creative self, and he drew a picture of a man with a sword. Again, this is a 5-year-old drawing.
Right.
There was a sword, and then he was pretty dark. He had some black around him. And then he told his mom, "There's power and there's dragons." And so when I did the reveal, it was a picture of Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. So
oh my goodness.
Right. So if anybody's familiar with Jon Snow, not only did he depict Jon Snow, he actually drew something very similar to Jon Snow. But we all know that Jon Snow had power. Not that anybody. Well, if you haven't seen the show, too bad at this point, really. But Jon Snow's connected to dragons, and he has power. So that the 5-year-old boy could draw a picture like that. And the image is on my website that is coming down. I'm getting a new website, so I would direct everybody over to the old website to see the image. But it's on my Facebook page, which is psi-kidscom. That's my Facebook page, and it's on there. So if anybody wanted to walk over, take a look over there and peek at the image of what the child drew and the image of Jon Snow, it's pretty fascinating. And that was just one example during COVID of a kid walking by that's how fast they can do it. So later on during the year, I actually put together a program online where I had kids and their parents, and we were doing remote viewing, and we were playing telepathic games, and we were really using our intuition, and the images that came back and what the children could see, again, it was just so phenomenal that it's not even a matter of questioning, this is so normal for them that it's basically, okay, let's teach this and teach how we can use this in everyday skills. How can we incorporate this? What can we do to make this kind of work become part of our learning with, using our self-control, using our power of our minds, understanding that if we are so powerful, Kat, that we can see across thousands time, distance, and space, then why are we so upset and, inhibited about having doubt and feeling like we're so unsure, and can we do it?
That.
Exactly.
But I have a question in chat for you.
Oh, okay. Well,
they want to know how the adults did at guessing.
Oh, well, I'm going to just say that they're not guessing. They're going.
Yes, you're correct. I'm sorry, but that's how it was phrased.
Okay. So they're not guessing. So not to correct anybody over here, but just for argument's sake, we can use the word guessing, but I like to perceive it more as intuiting it, that we see these numbers. The adults did really well. So say, for example, this is something that I do with the adults all the time who are starting out. And even though you may think that you're guessing it, there's something else going on. So if I were to say right now, we could even play this little game. If I were to say to the people listening who are on the call right now, so think of a number between 1 to 10 and just, draw it down and just close your eyes and think of the number between 1 to 10 and just allow those numbers to come through randomly until you feel that this one's calling you. It may just from 1 to 10. And if anybody wants to participate in the chat, let me know what numbers come in, and I'll tell you exactly what number I have written down on my paper.
Well, I have written a number down too. And is anyone ready? Sherry, did you write something down? Okay, we do have an answer, and I've got mine written down. Do you want us to tell you, or do you want
Oh,
to?
sure. Or I can just tell you that my number was 5. Okay. So the number that I had was 5. And when people are doing it for the first time, they think they're guessing. But did you have the 5 pop through at all? The thought of a 5?
Well, the first thing that I had was a 7, and it was so big I actually saw a 7.
Mm-hmm.
So but then I was like, oh, well, that came pretty fast. Maybe I should ponder a moment, and I did not get a 5, and Sherry got an 8. And she said that she did not get the perception of a 5 either.
Right. Okay. And so again, there's so many multiple things that are happening. One of them is that we are over time, distance, and space, and we haven't attuned ourselves yet. We're not on the same frequency just yet. And sometimes what happens is the 5s maybe the numbers will come in. If we did it again, we may have a higher, what's the word I'm looking for? We may have more accuracy as we get to know one another and our brain waves start to connect. That's how I look at it. And then there are times where we judge ourselves, just whereas you had a 7 and then you judged that, okay? And so, oh, well, maybe that's not right. And that is the thing that takes us out of the game immediately. We got to just start to trust that. And look, I sprang this on you very quickly, okay? So it's not like we didn't have deep training on this one, and we're not even in alpha. We're pretty much in a beta space. So it would have been cool if somebody had, tapped into that. But hey,
she said it's funny because she has 5 in her family, so she thinks of 5 a lot.
Oh, see?
And so that is funny.
Maybe that's why I chose it. Okay. So, no, it's just, we start to see all of these, what we call coincidences, but they're not coincidences. And with the kids and all of this, when we're working with when I'm working with the kids, they really, after a while, they start to really tune into each other. When I'm working in large groups where they don't know each other, sometimes I'll come into the room and I will just do, hey, let's do some colors. Okay, I've got a color in this envelope and it's called sending and receiving. I will send out a color. And just FYI, I have this is just a tangent because I don't want to forget this. I have a 16-page guide with all kinds of activities that parents or even adults can do with their children or themselves. And it's called What If? 6 Ways to Tap into Your Child's Inner Magic. And that's available for free on the psi-kidscom website. All right, so if anybody wanted to go to psi-kids academy.com, you can download that 16-page guide and start doing some of these activities that I'm talking about right now with yourself or your children. So that's available for free. And it's a great way to start, Kat. It's just really great activities in there. So one of the activities in there was that I would take an envelope and put a color in there. And then the kids would close their eyes and they tell us what color they see. And then there would always be pockets where people sitting next to each other would all see yellow. People in the other part of the room sitting next to each other would see blue. So it's very fascinating. So to me, this is that telepathic carryover where people are picking up on each other's thoughts. Yes. So it's very, very fascinating. And just when we see it, the stories just go on and on, Kat. I've been doing this for years, and that's why I just love it. And I wish that more people could have this experience of seeing what it's like, live, even with ourselves and with children, and having it's not woo woo, and it's not a lot of training and talking. We can learn this ourselves. We can teach it to our kids. And then what I do with it, I start to take it out of what I call the phenomena. So the phenomena is being able to, to see what's in the magic box that I would have. And the phenomena is to be able to take that and then say, well, you know what, I've got really great abilities. I'm developing my abilities. So therefore my confidence is raising. Then my emotional intelligence begins to raise. And then I have this level of confidence in myself and I'm more self-empowered so that you can use this empowerment to guide you through life and be more successful in whatever it is that you do and whatever success means to you.
That is amazing and
So
wonderful.
I'm going to share a little story, if I may. It is in, yeah, it's in the book Children Who Know How to Know, but it's always a little bit different when I'm talking about it. It was back in 2000, and I don't recall if it was 6 or 7 to be accurate, but The Secret had come out, and so did Betsy Chassey's What the Bleep. And once The Secret came out, at that time I was teaching New York City public school, middle school. And I started to think, you know what, if What the Bleep is out and The Secret is out, then I can take some of these tools and weave this into my curriculum while I'm teaching English. Because we had to teach to what is known, I'm not sure if they're still doing this, but I bet you they are. These are the standardized tests that are given every year. And it was more important for us back then to teach to the test than it was to even be doing any real fun work in terms of learning.
I think it still is. Not certain, but that's what they still use to, negotiate funding and such.
That's right. So I don't think we've moved too far away from that since 2006 and 7 from those days. So what I decided to do was to work with the kids and start using affirmations. Now, this is not psychic work. This is just using affirmations.
Yes.
So we started using
affirmations.
We started using affirmations. The answers for the test come easy to me. I always know the answers. And then I taught them how to quiet their minds if they didn't know an answer, close their eyes, and access their consciousness and say, I now know the answer. The answer is within me. I know the answer. Well, here's what happened. This was 7th grade, New York City, middle school. It was one of those, it felt like the movie Stand and Deliver from back in the day, because we had the highest test scores in the district and my class. So the principal called me in and said, what's going on in your classroom? Why are your scores so high? And I said, because we're doing affirmations and I'm teaching empowerment during my work. And then she said at that time, she said, listen, you know what? I really like what you're doing. And I'm willing to have you create an enrichment program. And you'll take 20 kids through the 4 quarters. So that would be like 20, 40, 80 kids during the year. And you'll work with them for a few weeks, these semesters, and you'll teach them the power to create. And it was a wonderful program, Kat. And that was the program that had me go like, wow, you know what? I can be teaching these kids remote viewing. I can be teaching these kids self-empowerment. I can teach them how to use more of their minds. And these were inner city kids that did not come from affluent neighborhoods. They had a lot of other problems going on. So this level of self-confidence really did something for them. And then I was just hooked. This is like, I've got to do this. I have just got to do the rest. This is my mission. I've got to go do this. So I'm glad you recognize that. Yeah, I left public school and went and started teaching private school. And then also with a group of parents, this was back when I lived in Washington State back then. So a group of parents and myself, we founded a small private school where we were able to teach all of this. And we even had blindfolded archery there. So this is where the kids are blindfolded and we have these bales of hay and we take them out and we would hit targets without seeing. And so these are just wonderful, wonderful things that the mind can do. So, yeah, this has just been a passion ever since I can really remember myself, honestly, because I, like other children, I am psychic. I work as a psychic during my day job. That is, I'm a psychic intuitive. And so I left teaching and went down the path of working with kids. And then, of course, having the psychic intuitive business, which is what I do during the day. And then the other part of my business is teaching psychic abilities to kids and their parents and conscious awareness so that we raise the level of consciousness in our society and move away from not being able to control our emotions. And again, like you were saying, like earlier we were talking about conscious disciplining, but really moving away from even discipline, but rather to take it to awareness. So if we have an awareness, then we can learn how to rein in our emotions, and there won't be that real need to discipline. But this takes a lot of teaching, and it takes a lot of work. And, all of it starts at home, educating the parents, and then even educating the educators in order for them to be able to educate the children.
That's just brilliant.
Thank you.
When I look at kids, because I would substitute teach at a middle school because I had kids that age. Every time I go to the elementary school, I would get the plague. My doctor said, teach the age of your children, which is great advice. Mm-hmm. So I did. But there's such a need because they don't want, the kids that I was around, they didn't want to be, out of control. And of course, that age group is tough anyway because the body is changing and the psyche is changing. Mm-hmm. But they didn't start out their day with the mindset of, I'm going to be a disruptor in this school. That it just would evolve that way. And once somebody started, it would just escalate. Mm-hmm. And if you could get them to just kind of make eye contact with you and, do some downtime kind of things, then you didn't have to go to the office as a rule. Mm-hmm. But it was so difficult for them, and I felt for them so much because it's tough going through that age group.
Right.
And if you have this discipline of thought and you've learned how to shift into a different state, then you stand a chance, right?
Yeah.
Without it, it's kind of a catch me if you can once it starts.
Right. And especially if you're not taught if you don't have any role models teaching you how to self-control, then how's a child going to self-control if they haven't been taught how to self-control? An adult screaming, stop it, is not teaching anyone how to self-control. And, teachers screaming at kids also, and then sending them out of the room. That's not displaying any self-control either, No. So most of the time I found when I used to teach that most of the problems were always due to frustration and the children not being heard. And then the frustration. So being able to tap into the frustration, understand why are they frustrated? Like what is frustrating them? Most of the time it's some sort of self-talk again, or something going on at home. And then the self-talk is, oh, I'm stupid, I can't do this, and then it starts to spiral down and the frustration kicks in. And what happens to adults, even when we're so frustrated that we can't use our words? Well, humans have a tendency then to act out. And that is just the inability to express oneself verbally and control the emotions. And we're reacting rather than responding. And so part of the program that I do with the kids is not just teach them how psychic they are, but also to segue into how they can control their responses and really get them to that level of conscious awareness. So it remedies, it adds kindness, it adds mindfulness, it adds trusting your intuition. It's like a heart to heart thing. There's no bullying and there's no, pushing people around and insulting some other kid and being mean. Kids can be really mean and cruel. I was at the playground with my 1.5-year-old grandson, and my mouth just dropped the words that were coming out of these kids' mouths and the way they were behaving. And I was like, oh God, they're so cruel. They're so cruel to each other. So
it's what they're taught. But we have to take another break, and I apologize for interrupting you. But we will be back in just a moment. This is a short break. Y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I'm so glad you're here, and also that my guest, Elly Molina, is. Elly, we were talking when we went to break about how unkind children, even young children, can be to each other. I always think that without some sort of interference or interaction or direction, Lord of the Flies could easily happen on any playground on any given day. Maybe not to that extent, but sometimes. And, when it's young children, is there a way that you would suggest intervening? How do you deal with that with yours when you're out there?
Well, first of all, I'm not in control. But
you're with someone that you're protective of, and you're trying to have a lovely time.
Right.
Do
so
you just
when I'm
leave?
Yes. Well, what happens is when I'm with my son, who is also, he owns his own gym here in New York, and he's a coach. So when I'm with him and his son, my grandson, and we do get to the playground, and some things happen around my grandson where the kids around are so mean and cruel, my son will actually intervene, and he will intervene. And he will choose his words very carefully, because what we say and how we say things makes all the difference. So that is another one of my chapters in chapter 4, where thought and language. So the way that we speak, is going to affect the results that we have. So if we're extremely careful with our words we can have a lot of success. So he always finds a way to speak so that he can direct the energy of the group, the people that are there, the kids that are a little bit wild and mean and cruel, that he'll find a way to direct them into another conversation or to move them out. And it's done through suggestion, so, hey, why don't you guys go over here, and maybe you guys are old enough to understand that the words you're using are not good around little kids. And I know you got that. And I know you know better than that. So thanks for cooperating. So it's basically that kind of energy. And he's very direct and kind. And there's no reprimanding. It's just what I call the what's so. It's just factual. Like, this is what you're doing. This is the behavior that you're displaying. These are the results. And this is what happens. And it's just a what so. So I'm big on, I raise my children to be, my own kids, to be very conscious of thought and language, and to be real clear as to what it is that we're putting out there, to be really mindful of our words. And so therefore they were raised that way. This is a big deal for us. We use language carefully.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a couple of more questions. Let's see, is this she? Yeah, this is Sherry. It says on your website, ways to tune into psychic abilities using practices used by the FBI and CIA. So she wants to know what that's all about.
Okay, so that's a little bit longer. That is actually remote viewing. And the term was officially coined by Ingo Swann. Mm-hmm. And this goes into the history of remote viewing. And it's a little bit more complicated, but there is a protocol. And this protocol was used by the CIA to train psychic spies when we were in this space. It was right after during the Cold War and then after the Cold War. So if you remember the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, even though it's a kind of a spoof and they're making fun of a lot of the situation, there was a lot of that was based on truth, and military were trained to use remote viewing protocols to see what was going on in other parts of the world. And there are still government agencies that use this today. Of course, yes. They may not publicly use this, say, hey, we're using this over here. But for people who are in the remote viewing community, there are people who are doing, this is what's done. So the protocol that I teach it follows the protocol, is the basic steps of it. And it's a protocol and it's training and it is formal training. And that's where I can say anybody can remote view when we're trained. So I don't know if that answered her question.
Well, I'm sure, but if you're interested, anyone listening is interested in learning more about that program, there's a really neat book out. Lloyd Auerbach is one of the co-authors with a Russian counterpart, and it's called Psi Wars.
Yeah.
So, again, you can find that in any book-selling facility, Amazon, all the places. And she said, yes, that did.
Oh, and also, Kat, if I can answer that, there was a movie put out, Lance Mungia put out a movie, Third Eye Spies, and that's available on Amazon, and that talks about it also. And it's a really great movie because now you could be watching it, and it's called Third Eye Spies.
Well, I wrote that down, and I'm sure our listeners are too, but I will be putting that in the event when we finish up. But I'm glad that you said that. I was unfamiliar with that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mm-hmm. So, there's a whole really big community. This is a fascinating subject. And I call him my new friend. I don't know and I have my own podcast also, but it's a very different podcast where it's called Ask Elly Intuitive Insights. And we talk about all kinds of things that are related to the psychic realm. And my guest last week was Daz Smith. He is known as one of the top remote viewers of our era right now. And Daz does a lot of work and remote viewing on cryptocurrencies. So now this has nothing to do with children, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
But on the other hand, I will tell you this, when I was teaching back, so for anybody who's interested in remote viewing like that, look up Daz also, DAZSMITH, Daz Smith, remote viewing, cryptocurrencies, fascinating subject. These are ways that we can use these abilities. And when I was teaching a small group of kids, their parents were very, very interested in what if my kid could get the numbers for the lottery? And so
most people are very, very interested in that.
Right. So the kids would practice remote viewing, and we would spend, we would spend some time, just like in school. Sometimes we used to have these times where you sit together, like in elementary school, you have circle time. So even with the older kids, instead of calling it circle time, we would just have like these few moments where, hey, let's just go take a look and see some numbers. What numbers do you see? And then if we had enough kids in the class see the same numbers during a certain amount of time, then the kids would say, okay, the parents agree to this. Okay. The kids could go home and give these numbers to their parents and see how it went. Now, I can't report that anybody won big lotto or anything like that from the experience, but never underestimate the power of your child, as long as you're not pushing them to do something that they don't want to be doing, So, but they are, like I said, they're very into the alpha space. So, because that's where their brainwaves are naturally. So it's really cool. They can come up with some numbers, and that might just be, your lottery ticket, for all we know.
Well, you know what? It would be nice if they won enough at least to go to Johnny Rockets or someplace for a milkshake.
Yeah.
That would be fun. And a nice reward for doing well.
You just don't want to encourage gambling. Okay, that's the other thing, So it's
well, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
They can save that for later.
Yeah, but, I mean, it depends on the attitude of the parent. Like let's go get these numbers. Let's go play these numbers. Let's see if we can see these numbers. And if it's done as almost science, it's done scientifically, and it's done responsibly, it can be a whole lot of fun.
Well, it can be, because it's validation for the children. It's validation for the parents that they're on the right track with their children.
Yeah.
And, it can be done scientifically. It can be like a fun family game. They don't even have to go buy the ticket. They can just watch the drawings or whatever.
That's true too. Right.
And, I think that sounds like a fun way just to get skills, because you're practicing. But anyway, I digress. I'm sorry.
Oh no, this is all for me. This is all part of it, Kat. Okay. Even moving into telekinesis, being able to move objects over again with our minds. And during the time that I was teaching, I've only seen 2 children able to do it in my lifetime. So, and that is, they've had intense concentration and focus. It is not easy. And that's what my book is about. The first one, Annabelle and the Domino. It's based on a true account. I just changed a lot of information in there. But this little girl practiced a lot. It took a lot of focus and belief that she could actually move this domino with her mind. And you know what? It happened. And then about 1.5 years later, I was working with a boy, and he was able to do it too. He was never able to repeat it, but it did happen, so that the domino did fall. And, he was not anywhere near the desk that he was working, where the domino was situated. So it wasn't anything that you could say, wow, he moved the desk, he knocked it. No, none of that. And I was there. I was behind him watching.
I just think that's so nifty.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff, and
it's a great reward for putting the work necessary into it.
Yeah. And again, this all gets into belief. If we believe that we can do this and we're raised with this, then this is something that we can do. Like I was teaching spoon bending during COVID. Well, why not, right? What else was there to do? I mean, like,
I have to tell you a story about that. Do you mind?
No, go ahead. I love spoon bending stories.
I was at an event. I was there as press, and I was backstage with some friends of mine who, several of them were abductees, but not everybody. And so one of the people came through with a handful of iced tea spoons, and was just passing them out. Said, "Who wants to bend?" And apparently this is a thing, right? And it was my first time hanging out with so many people with similar experiences. It was a lot of fun, but I was like, I don't know how to do this. And one of my friends looked over at me. She said, "You just use your energy. Just focus on it. And then once you feel that you've achieved the level you want, then you bend the spoon. It's not a big deal." So I did it. It worked. I came home, brought my teaspoon home, and it just sits where I keep the sweetener for my coffee and tea. And it's really funny because out of all the things that my husband has experienced, that's the thing that freaks him out. He doesn't even like seeing it because he's a machinist and it's metal and he knows it shouldn't do that.
That's right. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool?
I love it. You know what? I have talked us all the way up to the top of the hour, but I did want to share that with you because when you brought it up, I had never done this before. So when it was successful, it flipped me out a little bit because, I mean, it's bent. It is almost a knot. And when you brought that up, I thought, I've got to tell her this.
And I'm glad you did. I'm really glad. I love these stories.
So we are going to take our top of the hour break, guys, and we will be right back. We've got so much more to cover and some experiences for Elly to share. And I might keep my mouth shut a little better. Probably not. Y'all know that's hopeless. But we'll be right back after this. And, this is going to be a minute. So feel free to go ahead and, stretch your legs, fill up your beverage container, whatever works for you. And we'll see you on the flip side.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. In New York City, fire officials say they believe they have the cause of a blaze in a high-rise apartment building in the Bronx that left at least 19 people dead, including 9 children, dozens of others wounded. NPR's Lisa Kautau has more.
Emergency officials are calling this fire at a 19-story apartment building in the Bronx one of the worst fires in modern New York City history. Fire Commissioner Daniel Nigro says a malfunctioning space heater is likely what caused the fire. Dozens of victims have been taken to area hospitals. Here's New York City Mayor Eric Adams speaking outside in the rain Sunday evening.
If you need assistance, your names would not be turned over to ICE or any other institution. We want people to be comfortable in coming forward.
Officials say many of the victims are immigrants and will be in need of temporary shelter during this difficult time. Lisa Kautau, NPR News, New York.
Ottawa is ignoring pressure to drop the vaccine mandate for truckers bringing goods across the border with the U.S. As Dan Carpenchuk reports, Canada will soon require all truckers entering from the U.S. to show proof of vaccination.
Critics say the decision could make the shortage of drivers worse and even drive up the price of goods coming in from the U.S. The Canadian Trucking Alliance says it could also force about 16,000 cross-border truckers off the roads, but Ottawa estimates the real number would be about half of that. It's the first policy measure Ottawa has taken since the beginning of the pandemic to limit cross-border truck traffic. For the past 20 months, trucks crossed freely, being considered essential to keep supply chains moving. The highly transmissible Omicron variant appears to have increased Ottawa's resolve for a more strict vaccination policy. Canada's Border Services Agency says unvaccinated truckers who are not Canadian will be turned back beginning next Saturday. For NPR News, I'm Dan Carpenchuk in Toronto.
A new report tallies just how much the war on terror launched by the U.S. after the September 11th terrorist attacks has cost taxpayers. NPR's Sasha Pfeiffer has more.
The cost of the U.S. campaign to fight terrorism since 9/11 has many components. Among them are the price of secretly detaining prisoners at facilities around the world, of training counterterrorism forces, and of conducting raids and airstrikes. Letta Taylor of Human Rights Watch co-authored the report.
One of the more shocking findings is that the U.S. has spent about $5.5 trillion, that's trillion, dollars on the so-called war on terror over the past 2 decades.
That includes $540 million a year to operate the U.S. military prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, even though only 39 men are still being held there. Brown University's Costs of War project also helped produce the report. Sasha Pfeiffer, NPR News.
U.S. futures contracts are trading lower at this hour. You're listening to NPR News. Iraq's parliament has convened for the first time since the country's national election 3 months ago. But as NPR's Ruth Sherlock reports, the session, meant to be an important moment for the country, was marked by chaos and disarray.
Iraq's first parliamentary session eventually delivered a new Speaker of Parliament. The popular Sunni Muslim politician Mohammed al-Halbousi has won a second term in the post. But the session was marked by so much shouting and aggression that the acting parliamentary speaker collapsed and was hospitalised. The 73-year-old said he'd been psychologically assaulted by politicians who'd surrounded him during arguments over which group had the largest political alliance. No single political group won a ruling majority in the October elections. The last few months have been marked by wrangling between political blocs and accusations of fraud. Experts say an actual government may not yet be formed for several more weeks. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News.
At the weekend box office, Spider-Man: No Way Home continues its dominance, taking the top spot again and adding another $33 million in estimated ticket sales. The movie now ranks as the 6th highest-grossing film of all time in North America and the 8th globally. The animated Sing 2 came in second place in its third weekend with $11 million, and the movie called The 355, an original spy thriller, opened in third place with a lackluster $4 million in estimated ticket sales. I'm Janine Herbst, and you're listening to NPR News.
This message is brought to you by the NPR Coffee Club. A subscription brings fresh roasted coffee directly to your door, and you can also give a gift subscription to the NPR superfan in your life. Learn more about our new NPR blends by visiting us at nprcoffeeclub.org.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back for the second hour of Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I'm so glad to be. I am just, if you're listening through fatemag.com, you're on the website, and I hope you're enjoying everything as much as I am. But make sure you peruse that site because we've got some great things. We have uncirculated editions if you need to finish your collection. We have trading cards. We have back issues. We have shirts and hoodies. Love the shirts. Don't have the hoodie yet. Didn't think I'd need it. It's going to be 20 degrees tomorrow. I'm getting one. I live in the South. That doesn't happen. But anyway, I think you'll find a lot to like there. Also, if your subscription has run out, you can resubscribe or subscribe for the first time. And if you have any problems, that's where you can get in touch with Phyllis, our editor and owner. And she will be my guest next week because I've never interviewed her, and she's one of the most fascinating women I know. So come, listen, you'll learn a lot too. The woman actually interviewed Zecharia Sitchin. So that's got to be one of the best things that happened, Fate Radio to her. I think that would be a phenomenal thing, and we're going to ask her about it. But I digress because we've got a great guest here tonight, and you know what? We're having a great time. My guest is Elly Molina, and it is fascinating. The conversation is fascinating. Elly, I am so glad that you are here with me. I think that what you do is phenomenal. And I love learning, and you've got an awful lot to share. So thanks.
And thank you. Thanks for having me here. Really, I'm enjoying myself, and I love hearing your stories also. So it's a lot of fun being here with you. So thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about my work and the work that I do with children and their parents, so that we can all start to look at it as if it is not supernatural, but extraordinarily natural,
Yes.
Isn't that cool? Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that I absolutely loved in your foreword for your book, your intro, was no indigo children, no fifth dimensional ghosts and spirits, just people with ordinary, extraordinary abilities.
Yeah.
And that's so important because, a lot of people that I have run across over the years, especially on public forums or social platforms or whatever, feel very, I don't know what feeling leads them to be so focused on, well, I'm an indigo child, or, that's my twin flame, or I'm this, or, You don't have to be labeled to be special. Everyone is special.
Right.
And it's okay to just be you.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that, because that was a really big thing that when I first started the work and I took it to, I'm going to call it mainstream, even though I still really haven't gone mainstream, so to speak. But when I first started talking about this in other circles rather than the occult circle, let's put it like that. Of course, even in the occult circle, the first thing that I heard was, oh, I have an indigo child. My son's a star child. My son's indigo. My daughter's this. And, that I'm not, my knowledge of this is that we all have it, and we're not labeling kids because they're more intuitive. Some kids can play piano better than others when they're 6 years old, right? And they take piano lessons. So some people get it at home. Some people are, more developed in whatever it is. Some are more artistic, more musical. Some are better athletes. So there's this predisposition to having it, but that doesn't mean we have to label a child indigo child or star child or all of these, whatever. And I wanted to make it really clear that what I was doing was for everybody. And I wasn't looking to work with children who were so unique and, seeing ghosts and all the time. I didn't want that. Now, that doesn't mean that all children haven't had the experience of seeing ghosts. I bet you that if we asked kids and they were feeling very brave, that they'd be able to tell people around them or other adults, you know what? I saw a ghost. I saw an entity. I saw something. And, I think most all of us, maybe I'm off on this one, but I really think that if we gave ourselves permission, that we really can see a lot more than we believe we can see. Yes. I mean, I see it. I don't see them regularly any longer, but when I was a kid, I saw entities, but I never considered myself like, oh, okay, I can see ghosts. You know what I mean? I had things come to me in dreams, and I had entities come visit. And as an adult, I've had entities visit, but that doesn't scare me. And that's not what I'm looking for in psychic development. The psychic development part is like remote viewing. Anybody can use this.
Well, they can. Mm-hmm. And, I like that one of the things that you focus on as well is accessing and understanding the connection to universal consciousness, where everyone and everything is connected.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. And having kids understand, I think it's kind of like Joshua trees where everything is connected, right? If you damage one, then you damage all. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of that lesson that it is beneficial and would help on the playgrounds and other things too, and, in grown-up world too. But that's a big deal.
It is. And, Kat, this reminds me of, this is not when I'm teaching like small little one-on-one psychic classes that run 4 weeks, but during the time that I was really teaching, we would incorporate with the older kids, especially in the middle school, we would incorporate dream analysis, and we would tap into universal consciousness. And that was part of the curriculum, that was part of the power to create, that we would tap into those abilities, and we would talk about dreams and then learn how to analyze dreams and what do these dreams mean. And there's also work this is a little bit on a side, but it's so much fun. Through the Edgar Cayce Institute, Dr. Henry Reed is really a great person who works with dreams, and he created something called the Dream Helper Ceremony. And I did a retreat with parents in there. Are you familiar with that? The Dream Helper Ceremony?
I read about that in your other book.
So Henry mentored me for a year, and I used the Dream Helper Ceremony with a group of parents and their children. And even though we were doing it online, would you believe this was all done online? And then people were able to have similar dreams and able to diagnose problems, or just like knew what somebody else was going through as a problem in their life because the information came to them through dreams. So it's real interesting stuff. And again, this brings me back to everything and everyone is we're all connected. And I would teach that to the children. We are not separate. We think we're separate, but we are not separate. And that's a big learning thing that I do in my online programs also, is to teach that we are not separate, and that we just ascribe all kinds of meaning to things, and we think that we're separate, but we're really not. We're all connected. And that's why I love Avatar.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's my favorite. Well, one of my very favorite movies. It's my favorite graphic movie, and life lesson movie too. But I wish everybody would see that and feel the storyline as well as appreciating the art, because the art is phenomenal.
And James Cameron said that came to him in a dream. So this goes right back into, using the subconscious to connect to guiding us during our waking hours. And these are things that we can do, these are things that we can be teaching children how to do these things also. Go have a dream and come back and let's solve this problem. That's what Einstein did.
As a child. As a child,
exactly.
Oh, and go ahead and tell them what he did. I interrupted you.
No. And no, the thing is that here we are as parents, and so not all of us, but disregarding, oh, you had a dream. Okay. Yeah. Just shrugging it off. Who wants to listen? Who cares? It's not important. We're in really such lack of time, or with that, we don't even see the value in all of these, in all of the things that are available to us as parents, and even to be sharing with one another conversations about dreaming, learning how to understand the dreams. If a parent were able to have that conversation, well, what did you dream about? And the child then tells them, and then the parent has the skill to analyze the dream, you got a wealth of information going on right there.
Well,
you want to know what your kid is up to, what your kid's concerns are, what their fears are. You just find out what's going on in their dreams. And then, of course, you want to be careful in terms of not dismissing it, but you really want to look at it through a healthy dream analysis. Something that makes sense. There are different methods of dream analysis, but with knowledge, you want to look at it knowledgeably. That's what I was looking to say.
Well, I have not finished this book, your dream book. And I'm just so amazed by the part that I've gotten through already. It's just like, wow. And you say that everybody dreams. So to me, because for whatever reason, I used to have a very active dream recollection, skills. But over the past couple of years, I don't know if I'm just overwhelmed, if I'm, going to bed too tired, whatever. I do not chronicle them anymore. I don't remember them. So when I came across the
other book.
Reed's, yes. But when I came across the meditation, it was like, oh. So I highlighted that. I'm going to do that tonight. It's just a affirmation to, I will remember my dreams. I do remember dreams.
Yeah.
And so I've got my notebook already ready. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. So a little on a tangent over here. If anybody's interested, I have it's 99 cents. It's 99 cents on Amazon. It's a Kindle, and it is the Dream Interpretation Guide.
Thank you.
And I actually I tell people how to go about remembering their dreams, and then how to interpret their dreams, at least to get you started. So it's not a very complicated book, obviously. And
it wasn't on the book list, and I was sitting there going, I don't have this written down because I didn't anticipate it coming up.
Well, I forgot
it's
about
very
that.
good. It's very helpful. That meditation affirmation is fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
And I saw it and I grabbed it. So you go grab it too. Look on Amazon under Elly Molina books, and you'll find it there.
Yeah.
So
I had forgotten about that one when I was, yes, I just, because it's not connected to, actually like working with kids, but it's all part of working with children. They would come in and tell me their dreams, and then we would talk about them and we'd analyze them, and then we'd have glimpses into that. And then we would look at part of that as, again, psychic intuitive development. So,
yes.
And what I tell myself is that when I have a problem, this is just when I have not a problem, but let's say I want a solution to something. I tell myself before I go to bed, tonight I'm going to have a dream and I'm going to have the solution to what it is that I need. And I will remember. And then of course it's important to have that paper and pencil or something to write with, because the moment that you wake up, you've just got to wake up, and you'll wake yourself up. It just happens because the subconscious works that way. And then you got to write it down fast. Otherwise, you're going to forget it.
It's amazing. It's amazing how fast that time period goes. We have to take a break. But I just appreciate that book. It's fantastic.
Oh, you're welcome.
We will be back, guys. And thank y'all so much for being here. I know this is a lot of your favorite ad that we run, so enjoy.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? Well, you see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watched a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step, after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page, is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics, from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of, a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. My guest is Elly Molina, and you can check her out at Elly Molino, ELLYMOLINO.
INA. Sorry.
Sorry.
No.
.com.
I spelled my own name wrong. Molina. Yeah, no, Molina. Yeah.
So that's funny. But just check her website out. However you spell it, you'll come close. You'll probably find her. Just kidding. But because you have got to see the website. It's great, and she has several. But I know that we had some things that we wanted to have kind of a lengthy segment to go through. So probably how the psi abilities create compassionate people and build their esteem, confidence, and such. But before we go, do you find it easier working with the children than with adults?
I find it different, and I'll explain that. The children it's easier to work with the kids in terms of getting results because they're in alpha naturally. And so they're not judging themselves, or it depends on how early I get them, meaning how young they are when they come in. But then the thing where I run into resistance with the children is when the kids don't really want to be doing it, but the adults want the kids to be doing it. Right.
Well, that's never fun.
Right. Exactly. And then it's like, okay, well now, and then some of the kids, the kids are so good at it that they get bored easily. So that's where, they're so good, believe it or not, that they just start getting bored. And it's like, oh yeah, well, I did this. Okay. I remote viewed all of this. So now what, now what can we do? And so then I have to take it into the next level. So that is where, for example, taking it into conscious raising, and then taking it into auras, going to look for, really taking it to the next level. Because the kids get, like, let's talk about psychometry, like being able to take an object and then with psychometry, you hold an object and then you can talk about the object or the owner of the object. Mm-hmm. So kids are great at that. So they get bored easily because they're really good at what they do. And I find it interesting to work with the adults, but I spend a lot of time looking to get the adults into the alpha because, we're in beta in the higher functioning brain waves. And so that's not where the intuitive mind works. That's not where intuition resides. That's not where we need to go. Mm-hmm. So working with adults is slower because I need to have them go through meditations, and then we have to spend time meditating, and people become impatient. They want to do the psychic work, and they're not often willing to do the meditations that lead into the psychic work.
Well, I know that is probably universal because people are told all the time how busy they are. You got to be, on that track. Of course, COVID slowed some of that down, but it caused more anxiety. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to focus when you're anxious, even though that's when you really need to.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But what about this thing with creating more stable, compassionate, full of self-esteem and confidence young people mm-hmm. through their developing psi abilities? I mean, I would think that some of them it might make feel odd, but do they just get past that because they know it's what they can do and do well and they feel good?
Yeah, so to answer that, Kat, it depends on the context in which it's taught, and it also depends on the conversations that are happening around them and back in the home. So when I teach this work, I make it a really important part to say, I may use the word phenomena. This is just something that we can do. And this is a gateway to other things that are possible. And then I will always include mindfulness, and then I will include intuitive heart. And intuitive heart is something that I learned from Dr. Henry Reed. And intuitive heart is where we, and I do this with the kids, we close our eyes, and adults can do this also. And you just go through a meditation, or, I have a script. I have meditation in my book. I have a script in my book. But if you're a meditator, then you can put together your own meditation, and you close your eyes and you breathe deeply and you get into a meditative space. And then you ask your heart for a message. And when I was doing it with the kids, so they'll close their eyes, and then I'll guide them through a guided meditation, and they can see the energy like a white light swirling around their heart. It's real fun. It gets to be really imaginative for the children. And then we get to look inside our heart and hear what our hearts have to say. And then the kids will say something, like, in the book, for example, I did this with a 9-year-old, and he looked at me and he was so excited. And he told me, my heart said to trust, and I'm going to do this when I'm scared. And wow, imagine being able to tap into your heart and listen, because, the heart is a brain also of itself. So to listen to your heart and be able to have compassion for the person, the kid sitting next to you.
Just amazing.
And so this is, in the book also, I talk about like examples of things that happened in the classroom, where I just stopped the kids from getting angry and reacting and responding. And we talk about what are we making it mean, and then does it mean because a kid pushes you and tells you to go away, does that mean that they don't like you? And so, I broke that down. I dissected it in the classroom. And what it turned out to be was they had told it, and I guess it's in the story, so they had told the kid that they didn't want to play with him because they wanted to play by themselves. And he just, and then we dissected the whole thing so that the child actually understood. And they had these conversations where the girl said to him, I'm your friend, John. I just wanted to play with Amy today. And then, I'm sorry I knocked over your blocks. And the kid says, I'm sorry I called you stupid. And that was it. This, otherwise they could have gone home angry, upset, making something mean something, oh, nobody likes me. I'm a loser. I don't have any friends. So kids do this also. We start creating stories early on. We make meaning to these things. And then if I can teach the children at a very early age not to attach meaning to everything and everyone, so that we can make sense of our world, well, this is such a gift to a kid. So they're not like, oh, that person's frowned at me, they must think I'm stupid, all that self-talk. So in the program with teaching psychic development, I spend time in these areas. So it's not just about teaching the phenomena of looking inside a box and seeing what's in there, or seeing 1,000 miles away and, discovering pictures there. It's not about that. It's also about the ability to connect with other people, heart to heart, your own heart, and to realize that we are all, again, connected, so that we are kind and compassionate to one another.
Which is so lacking
in
our society, and so important to a society.
Yeah.
I love that.
And unfortunately, we see this drama all around us, Kat, because it's in TV, because we wouldn't be watching these shows if they weren't dramatic, right? They'd be boring if everybody was just so happy and they weren't fighting or anything like that.
Well, I like those shows.
One day, my son came home from school one day, my youngest son, and he looked at me and he said to me, Mom, why do the kids in my class all have drama? Like, what is that? What is that about? Why do they have drama? And it was at that moment, Kat, that I realized I had raised this child without drama. Everything was pretty much, like I call it, a what's so. So there was no screaming and fighting and drama and problems and stories. It didn't exist.
That's so unusual.
It is, but that's how we do our life. That's how we do our lives. That's how I raised them. That's how my students would do class with me. We did it drama free, because it really gets into the space of like, well, what so? Well, I'm having a meltdown. Why? What are you having a meltdown? Oh, because he called me stupid. All right. So what? So he called you stupid. Does that mean that you're stupid? What does that mean? He called you stupid. Perhaps he doesn't have better vocabulary and he's frustrated. So let's take a look at that, And so
that's an excellent point with children.
Mm-hmm. I mean, why do we call people names? Because we're frustrated and we don't have the words and we're hurt. And it all comes back down to, okay, my feelings are hurt, acknowledge it. Why are your feelings hurt? Because you're making it mean something.
I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty simple when we have the tools, Kat, it's really simple. It could be so simple that we can then start to really create a world of children and adults where we can have heaven on earth and we can be in a space of bliss. And yes, we do have anger chemicals that run through our body, but we can also learn to control them. And I wonder, and this is just a thought that I've had, I wonder that if we were taught from early on, would these, not to get angry or not to get angry, because we're probably taught that, would it be that way? Or is it really biological that, I'm sure if we feel pain, it's going to hurt. Okay. And so we do have that. But I often wonder about how much is taught and how much are we really born with, in terms of our emotions?
I think that it's taught. I think that you see babies get angry, but that's because they're hungry or they're sitting in poop. It's pretty simple. That would be angry too. But when those things are resolved and they're not suffering, then they seem to do okay.
Right. When they're,
in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, their needs need to be taken care of. And then it's just the way that parents, again, unfortunately, react to babies crying, or even other people react to babies crying. So babies don't cry without a reason. That is what they're communicating. And so when we look at why is my child crying? Well, there's a reason. So let's go look at the possibilities. And that, again, takes consciousness. And so that one's not screaming around saying, oh, shut up, kid. Why are you always crying? Well, I'm a baby. Okay.
It's my job. It's what you had me for, apparently.
Right.
But, then you come back into the 2-year-olds when they are having all these big emotions that they're not able to deal with yet. You have to guide that. That's still just a phase of human development.
Right. And that's where they're lacking vocabulary to express this, this frustration. They want something, they're lacking, they're not being understood. They're being told no when they really want to be doing something because they want to explore, but they're being told no. And why are they being told no? Because we want to protect them. We don't want them burning their hands or doing something that would endanger them. And so then children get frustrated. There's just lack of language and ability to exert themselves. And again, but if we're aware, if we're cognizant of this as the adult, then we can actually talk this through without too many words. But just like really a couple of words, like, I get you're frustrated. I get you're angry. You want to put that thing in there. I get it. Let's see what else we could be doing.
And, I have actually been enjoying being the grandparent as opposed to the parent now, because I see the interaction between, the young mothers in my family and their children. And it's a whole different way from what I experienced when I was trying to maintain a household and make sure there was food and make sure that there was, shelter and all those things, because they're doing that too. But they are much calmer in their dealings with the children, as a rule. One is trained as an educator, so that helps a lot. Another is trained as a chef, so she has that to fall back on as far as planning and scheduling, and there's a lot that goes into that are good life tools too. And it's just interesting to watch, because there may be frustration at times, there may be whatever, but it's generally now those are really big emotions you're dealing with, says one, and the other says, you're just frustrated, and talks through that. It's so nice to see, because it's a whole different method of parenting now.
Yeah.
For the most part. And I'm not sure how that came about. I know there's a lot of people their age that don't deal with the frustration as well. And I mean, you see them at events or whatever with their children. But as a large part, maybe it was watching Barney all those years ago, or, Barney was big at our house, but everybody needs manners. But, what do you think in your work with children and their parents, because their parents are actively involved with you and interacting with you? So do you think there's a difference in parenting in the large part that is helping these kids maybe start recognizing their own emotions, or is that a rarity? I'm sorry, that took forever to get that question out.
Oh, no. So I don't really have an answer for that right now, and I'll tell you why. Because the work that I'm doing doesn't really, I don't get to see what goes on in the way that they're parenting their children. I get to see the kids, and then when I'm working in teaching them, when I get to see the kids, and the parents are basically spectators. So the kids that I work with are polite, okay, and so they're polite, they're respectful. They are there to learn, and they're there to listen. They're there because most of them are there because they want to be. There's a rare kid that doesn't want to be there, and then we find a way for that child then to leave, so the parent doesn't get upset. All right, but in terms of them being disciplined, I don't see that, because I'm not in the classroom anymore, like in terms of education, or I'm not in that dynamic, Kat. So I don't really see that. The only people I see that I can say, I see people parenting are like my own kids. That's about it at this moment.
I was just curious about that, because I think it has a direct flow into self-esteem and the kind of people they evolve into. But we're going to go ahead. We are right at our final break. So if you have questions, get them in chat. I know you're out there. I see you. But go ahead and just sign on in. And we'll be right back. And we'll get those questions answered for you. Y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back for the final segment of Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate magazine. I hope that you have been enjoying this show nearly as much as we have, because Elly, you are a fantastic guest. Your work is fascinating, and your books are too. I have really been enjoying them. Plural. They're good. They're all good.
Thank you.
So, we this is our final segment. This is you time.
Okay.
And I would like to know, I want people to know how to find you.
Okay.
And I would like to know anything. Oh, and we have questions.
Oh,
so
nice. Mm-hmm.
Before we go to the where are you, this one might take you a minute, or it might not. But what has been your greatest pleasure in what you're doing? Is it the outcome of your own children, or helping other kids and adults recognize abilities and personal gains?
For me, it is working with other people and having other people have success. I'm all about other people having success. That's part of my business also. When I do consulting and coaching, it is about the outcome that they go on to have great, fabulous lives. That's what I'm about. This is all about them. And that the greatest part for me also is when a kid's eyes light up because they got that sparkle back, because they realize that what they've just done is amazing, and they're so happy and they're so proud of themselves, and there's such a high level of self-esteem and confidence. That magic is back. That look in children's eyes, that sparkle. If you ever take the look at like a really young child, they look at you, that look of love, where their eyes are sparkling like that. Okay. And then by the time they get to maybe kindergarten, first grade, somewhere in there, that shine, that sparkle is gone. And so when I'm doing this work with kids, that sparkle, that shine, that love, that excitement, that brilliance, it's there in their eyes. And that is the magic for me.
No doubt. No doubt.
And of course, the reason why their eyes, of course, are lit up like that is because of what's going on internally, right? Otherwise, the chemicals would not be able to do that in their eyes. So that is their joy. Yes. And so when I see them filled with joy and wonder, that melts me. Okay, Kat, that just melts me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it would. That's wonderful. And how wonderful to be in a profession that allows you to have that.
Yeah. On good days, right? No, seriously, for the most part, whenever we're doing the work, yes, it's there, because the kids are so great at doing this work, and they're so enthusiastic, and they just love doing it, and they're inspired, and they can't wait to do more. And then I just love the look in their eyes and their excitement.
Well, let me ask you this, Elly. Are you an anomaly? Are there other schools that do the work that you're doing, or something similar?
Yeah, there are, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
So, but it's different. So somebody who's doing the work, and I ran into her, and I consider us colleagues. I ran into her through a friend. Her name is Nicola Farmer. Now she's doing something called ICU. It's an intuitive something academy, and Nicola does this, and she's taking it to a different level, but a different direction also. So where she's going is that the children learn to read without their eyes. Okay, we do this, and
yes.
And right, this is using mindfold. And so she has taught the kids how to read without using their eyes. And I never got that far, not because the kids weren't able to do it, but just because I didn't have enough of them. They have to be with me for longer periods of time in order to be able to do that. So I just, that's one thing. And then of course, Caroline Corey also, and the Russians, yes, they're doing this also. And then in India, they do it. There's some schools in India where they have their blindfolds on, and you can the teacher will rub a color on the kid's arms, and the kid will say, okay, that's purple. Okay. And so this is all being done. It's just not done enough. And sometimes I feel like we're so backwards here compared to some of the other countries, and we're behind the times. And that's just, I know, don't anybody hang me for saying that, but it's really, it takes the United States sometimes a couple of years to catch on to what's going on. I also noticed this. I noticed a big difference between the East and the West Coast. When I lived out on the West Coast, those ideas and concepts, some of them still haven't even caught on. And I'm in New York right now. And so what I was doing out in Seattle, in the Seattle and Washington area, this stuff is unheard of. And I'm in New York. Okay. And there people are responding to this as if I'm from outer space.
That's just so interesting.
Yeah.
You would think that would be the other way around.
Right. But I look at it like, I have a theory on this, is that, the West was pioneered by adventure people, right? And so New York and the East Coast has historically been very conservative and involved in banking and money and old traditions. So, and out West, there's always been innovation and new stuff. So I kind of wonder if that's not part of the culture in general.
Well, obviously it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, we have another question, and then I want you to tell people about ways to find you. But the question is, have you ever seen the television show psi-kids? And if you have, how do you feel about it?
So I've never seen it. So I stay away from TV shows that look to, I don't know if this is even true, that I stay away from TV shows where the kids have paranormal abilities that are so bizarre, that I stay away from that. So I'm not really sure what Psychic Kids is about. I've never watched it. I've never seen it. I've
never seen it either.
I know many years ago, I was approached by a film company and they wanted to consult and work with me, but they were looking for indigo children. They were looking for children. They were looking for the bizarre, again, for the kids who had, I call it bizarre, for the kids who've seen ghosts.
Well, just the labeling is bizarre.
Yeah. And so I said, I don't work with children in your category. So I never heard back from them again, and that was okay.
Well, it was okay. It's not your color Kool-Aid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've never seen the show, so I have nothing to say about it.
Well,
but I do stay away from shows where the kids are flying and all of this and exerting supernatural powers, because the reason why I stay away from it is because that's not real. And the work that I'm doing is real. And I want to be working in what I perceive as real. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's your passion.
Yeah.
That's okay. We all have our passions. This what gets us up in the morning.
Mm-hmm. True. Mm-hmm.
So, she said that Chip Coffey had a show that was made later where older kids with abilities helped other kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was, I did see that because I know Chip Coffey and I try to support him in his work. So
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting, but it was hard to watch because I didn't always understand the difference in abilities. So, but, well, I think that I have just loved every minute of this. You know, one of the things that I think is so cool about you, and I want to reiterate this, is that you're actually creating programs that can harness skills like remote viewing, telepathy, telekinesis, and others that that can be applied to everyday life, so that these kids are feeling like empowered and confident, and they're understanding connections, accessing to universal consciousness. And I don't know at what point you start teaching that this is universal, but ultimately that is what you're doing. And do you start with them at the preschool level and understand? Do they understand how cool they are with their ability, with what they're learning to do? I mean, everyone has the ability, not everyone has the training to be able to access that ability, but do they?
No. And I'm going to tell you a funny story really quickly. I was teaching, and when I wrote Annabelle and the Domino, Betsy Chassey's daughter Betsy Chassey's daughter was in one of the classrooms, and one day I asked Betsy what her daughter thought about Annabelle and the Domino, and her daughter said, "Oh, it's boring. Everybody can do that." And this was about telekinesis. And I was like, "No, everybody can't do this. All right, just because you guys know how to do a lot of that, and you can do all this work, doesn't mean everybody else can." So the kids who learn this early on think that everyone can do this, and then they're surprised and shocked that other people have drama and don't know how to use telepathy or don't know how to navigate psychically. It's interesting. It's another interesting way of looking at the world.
It sure is, isn't it? And yet she's right, because everyone can. Not everyone knows they can.
Right. That's right. That's right.
So I think that's great. I wish everyone could. If people just would tap into universal consciousness, it would be so difficult to be ugly and hateful and
that's true. Yeah,
I just think that the boiling level would cease to be where we live.
Absolutely, Kat.
But well, now tell people where to find you. You're everywhere.
Not quite, but that'd be cute. Thank you, though. So I am online, and the website is www.ellymolina.com. So it's ellymolina.com. And the Psi-Kids Academy is psi-kidsacademy.com. And it's psi-kidsacademy.com, and it's getting built into the Elly Molina site. So in a couple of weeks, maybe within a month and a half or so, it will all be one site together. So, and I do offer online classes, and that is at Psi-Kids Thinkific, THINKIFIC.com. And those are online classes, thinkific.com. These classes are for children and adults. Okay, so you don't have to be a kid to take these classes in. They're online, you do it at your own pace. And they're designed for parents, educators, children, adults, the kid in us who wants to do this in such a way that it's really not intimidating.
That is so cool.
Thank you.
I just think that's awesome. So we will have to get together and chat again sometime. I have so enjoyed this conversation and being able to bring you to our audience. The information is just, it's just fantastic. You know, it's one of the things we didn't even actually get into is teaching children the power of thought and language creates children and adults who know that they are conscious creators of their reality. So I want to have a conversation about that too.
Right.
So there's so much, and we just barely touched base on this.
There is a lot, Kat, there is. But I want to thank you for having me and for giving me this opportunity to share to anyone and everyone who's listening about our remarkable psychic abilities that are there. And so all my work, even if it says for children, it's for the kid in us. So not to be intimidated, you know, oh, it says kids. We're all kids in there. We've got all ages inside of us. So have a peek around, have a look, try the exercises. For sure, download the guide. The psi-kidsacademy.com, that website will bring you right to the guide. What if 6 ways to make magic, and with your kids and even with yourself. So
fantastic. Thank you for making that available.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Well, for all of our listeners, and whether live or through one of our apps in our podcast status, thank you so much. Because y'all are the reason that we do this. You know, every show here on WBHM-DB is designed with you in mind. And our hosts bring great info. It's a good time. So, thank you again. And, I'm going to say it. If you don't like the world you're looking at, you can change that. Smile. If you're in a mask, if you're in a lockdown zone and you're wearing masks, double masks, triple masks, whatever, smile. The smile reaches your eyes. It starts in your eyes. And smiles are magic. You can make someone's day. And, just be the person you want to be. Get out there and change the world. I've got 2 different shirts that say we can do that in different ways. So, you know what? Gotta be true, right? It's probably on the internet somewhere. Be true there too. Anyway, thanks so much. And I just think every one of you are special. I will see you this week later on Paranormal Experienced on Wednesday. And Phyllis Gotti is going to be my guest on Fate next week, so you don't want to miss that. Good night. Be the change.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.